session for the Council of the City of Norfolk will now commence. Mr. Roberts, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the City Council. I'd like to take a few minutes and provide an overview of the proposed agenda for this afternoon's work session meeting. The first presentation listed is a brief overview of some utility work that's taking place over in the Norview Avenue corridor near the Norfolk International Airport. You received a memo updated this late last week, and so Doug is just going to provide an overview and answer any questions you have. That is followed on the agenda by CSRM, Coastal Storm Risk Management Project update, which will be provided by Colonel Sonny Avachal, District Commander of U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We're glad to have him here with us this afternoon. We also have listed a special event update specific to Juneteenth, and that will be provided by Laborious Pace. Then we have our monthly city planning update. We do have a number of items that require consideration for a closed session motion. So if there are no objections, I would like to propose a slight reordering of the agenda. Recognize that we have a guest here. I would like to propose we take up the CSRM project update first, followed by the update on Norview Avenue and planning, and then ask that you consider a closed session motion.
Please try again.
Time permitting, we can come back and cover the other items. So with no objection or other amendments, I would like to call up Doug Beaver, Deputy City Manager, to introduce Colonel Avachal and our additional guests.
Without objections, Mr. Beaver, welcome.
Good afternoon, Mayor. Good afternoon, Vice Mayor, members of Council.
Thank you, City Manager Roberts. As the manager mentioned, I'm joined today by Colonel Sonny Avachal, who's the Norfolk District Commander. Prior to the Norfolk District, he also commanded the Nashville District for a couple of years. He has served overseas in various leadership positions in Iraq, South Korea, Germany, and various locations within the United States. Also joined by the city's Chief Resilience Officer, Kyle Spencer, and I know the Colonel has a number of his team members here today as well. So we're here today to provide you an update on the Coastal Storm Risk Management Plan. Here's the agenda. Today we'd like to propose to go over the project's objectives and start with the why. Why are we doing this project? Brief you on updated cost projections and how we are looking to revise our funding strategy as a result. We'll also cover work happening around Harbor Park, the non-structural program, and some key legislative matters. And finally, as always, we'll wrap up with looking at how we're talking to the community about this project. At this point, I'd like to invite Colonel Avachal up to cover the first few topics, and I'll return to cover the last.
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and esteemed council members, thank you for allowing me to speak here today. Really, before I get started on the presentation itself, I just want to say a few introductory comments to the group here. And first, partnership. So the partnership that we've shared with the city staff, Doug, Kyle, Mr. Roberts, the entire city has been absolutely phenomenal. Just want to say thank you and look to continue that partnership as we move forward. This project, this program as a whole, you have to understand it is the first of its kind across the country. And so with that, we are experiencing a lot of firsts. And this is to be expected in something as grand as what we are trying to accomplish here today. But we have seen other cities follow suit. So we have Charleston, Southern Texas, Boston, to name a few, that are all trying to follow in our footsteps as we lead a coastal resilience program that happens before a storm, which is not something that typically happens across the country. Usually we wait until a storm hits an area, and then we look for ways to not have it not happen again. In this case, we're doing it proactively, which is something that we should all be very proud of. Third is just transparency. We are here talking about cost because I think we need to be completely transparent with our partners and with the city leadership of where we see the project right now and where we see the cost going into the future. And I think that that's important, so we're all very well informed as we embark on this journey. And then lastly, again, this is a working estimate. It will change. Per our policy, we do these every 2 years. And so as a result of that, They are based off of what I like to consider facts and assumptions. And as we do more design, the number of facts go up and essentially our uncertainty goes down. So we have more facts than we do assumptions. And in that case, again, this is a working estimate that we do every 2 years in the Corps of Engineers. So first, I am going to start with why. So why is this important? Why is this program so important to not just this community, but also really why it's important to the nation? Oh, I think I may have skipped a slide there. Okay. So first and foremost, we talk about the human health, life, safety, property. Really, there are 188,000 inhabitants that will benefit from this project, 68,000 structures. When we talk about resilience of the economy, not just in this area, but as well as how that impacts the entire nation. For those that don't know, Norfolk Harbor is now the deepest port in the entire East Coast. That's something that we just reached that milestone over the last month or so. So that is not just important to us, but also to the nation. And then lastly, I don't need to speak about this too much, but we all know the importance of the military installations that are within the footprint here. 15 total installations, 80,000 active duty military service members, and many of whom are actually serving bravely overseas right now. So this is just another graphic that shows a lot of what we talked about already. One other note on here is the $23 billion of total real estate value that stand to be protected by this program. Okay, so this is probably the slide I'm going to spend the most amount of time on today. This talks about really where we see our costs going, and they are increasing. In some regards, it's increasing a lot. So we went from $2.6 billion, that was an estimate, that was in 2023. Now we see that almost $6.1 billion. Now, again, as I stated earlier, some of that is driven by facts, and some of that is driven by assumptions that we were making about the future of construction as well. And then there is we still have a significant amount that is contingency in this entire estimate as well. So the first category I'll speak about here is on to the left. We talk about design refinements. So as we've progressed design, and I'll talk about phase 1A in particular, we've realized that when we had a conceptual plan, as we start to fine-tooth that plan and really put a fine point pencil to it, we understand that there are certain additional features that need to be added. So as we, for example, as we looked at where the water would pool or where that water would go, we realized, our initial assumption of really one pump station, now we actually need more than one pump station. Another example is when we start talking about evacuation and really start thinking through the plan of this particular feature, we understand that, well, now we have to have more gates that need to open so that we can allow for emergency vehicle access on both sides of the project. This typically happens as you advance design. We realize a conceptual plan, more features need to be added as you go into a more finer design. So that accounts for 18% of that cost growth. So what we did there, once we determined those additional facts, is that we started to apply those throughout the rest of the design. So maybe where we saw one pump station, now we're thinking, okay, we're probably going to need more than one pump station at that location. We haven't gotten to the point of designing that yet, but we've essentially increased all of our factors to account for that. And that's where you see the 32%. Again, that's an assumption that we're making until we actually get to the point of advancing that design beyond what we call 35%. The third category is construction timeline. So timelines in general and what we've seen across the nation and especially in the Hampton Roads area is the cost of construction has increased. When we see how construction costs have increased over time and then we project out the duration of this project, we're estimating about $664 million increase. Again, this is an assumption. It's not, we don't have a crystal ball to look into the future, but we are understanding that construction is getting more expensive, and then as that duration goes on, the midpoint of construction gets pushed out, which essentially drives $664 million increase. And then the last portion here is we still have a very healthy, I'd say, amount of contingency in our estimate, about $1 billion worth. This is for all of the unknowns that we have yet to encounter, but we will essentially be able to reduce that contingency over time as our design fidelity increases. Okay. And then finally here is just this is just a general timeline of where we are in project timeline. So design is going to occur through various stages. So as each phase progresses, they don't all progress at the exact same time. So for example, phase 1A is almost at 100% design right now, and getting, I don't want to steal Doug's thunder, but it is, we're getting really close to putting shovels in the ground, which is really exciting. Site work, again, when we do a lot of this construction, what happens underground is not always visible, but it's extremely important. So underground utilities that need to be essentially moved out of the way so that we could put in these structures, extremely important and extremely timely, time-consuming and frankly expensive, but absolutely necessary. And then we have our construction timeline and then the final completion. Okay, so with that, I'll hand it back over to Doug.
Thank you, Colonel. All right, so knowing what we know now and we learned this past month, we've been working very diligently to revise our funding strategy. And the first 2 points on this slide are the key considerations which I want to cover. So city staff, along with our consultants, have worked with our congressional delegation to have language put into the Water Resource Development Act of 2026 that would reduce our non-federal cost share from 35% to 10% for everything that was agreed, for everything above which was agreed upon in the PPA. So of the $3.5 billion additional dollars, that would be a 90-10 cost share. And we have seen that in other projects that the Army Corps has done, notably in Staten Island. They had a similar project with significant cost overruns, and when they amended their PPA, they went to a 90-10 cost share. So we absolutely need to have that. We should know more about this legislative effort in the coming months as the congressional committees begin working on the legislation through the summer. In addition to that, we are continuing to work with our state partners who have been very good in the last several years of the Community Flood Preparedness Fund about getting money into this project. If our new cost share efforts are successful with Congress, we would like to formalize that 50-50 cost share with the state and potentially even have them as a signatory on an amended PPA, which we would need to do to memorialize the 90-10 cost share. If these two efforts are successful, we have the potential to have protection for the city in a $6.1 billion program with a roughly 10% local city match. And so the analogy I like to use is when we had the Ohio Creek project several years ago with a substantial $112 million HUD grant, we had a delta in what was the contracted estimate and what we had available in federal funding. And City Council authorized an additional $9.5–10 million to that project to get it started and successful within the 3 years we had to build it. Also, as the 30% designs for the phases of the project are completed, we will do an extensive value engineering effort to look at the major cost drivers and determine how to drive these down. This is very typical on large projects, and to use the Ohio Creek project example again, we did about 20% reduction in costs after value engineering, after the construction estimates were received. I'd like to talk about phase one. As the Colonel mentioned, we are nearing the point where we can do some contract awards and get shovels in the ground. We have multiple project activities underway along this stretch, and some of these are time-bound to the CFPF grant that I just mentioned that the state has provided. So we want to get started. Those grant cycles typically go in 3-year increments. So this summer, we continue site work, including utility relocations. You'll see those typically happen in between when the Norfolk tides are in. We are very diligent on the fact that we have constrained areas with regards to our parking, so we know any work that we do, we need to deconflict with the other activities over there. The Harbor Park Pump Station design-build contract is in work right now, with the goal of awarding a contract this fall, followed by a year or so of design, with construction completing in 2029. The Army Corps will oversee the construction of the flood wall along Front Street, next to the Berkeley Bridge flowing east. They anticipate awarding that contract in the spring of 2027, with approximately 2 years of construction to follow. Construction from that point, from the ferry landing next to Harbor Park, will then continue east till we tie it into the Campostella Bridge and the Ohio Creek project to complete that area. I do want to highlight the 2 pictures here. Those were both taken in 2025. One was a coastal storm where you can see the light rail tracks fully inundated and underwater. The other one is during one of our king tides or high tides in some instances. And I want to highlight in 2024, we experienced 14 high tide events in Norfolk. And with current sea level projection rises, there are going to be 25 in 2030, 45 in 2040, and up to 85 tidal flooding events we expect in 2050, according to NOAA projections. The phase of this project will ensure waterfront property, which could be economically developable or viable, will remain so if we complete this segment and then continue on with the project. Also wanted to highlight the voluntary non-structural program, which has commenced in the Willoughby Spit area. We have a 62 pilot project homes identified that are all pre-eligible. We just kicked this off a couple of months ago. We've had 20 homeowners already start the application stage of the process. Overall, there's about 275 homes in the Willoughby area that are all pre-eligible from the feasibility study in 2019. What I want to have a point of distinction is this program allows for 100% federal, non-federal monies to go into that home elevation or other structural measures. That's different from FEMA, where the homeowner typically is responsible for 10 to 25% of those costs. So this is 100% borne by the project and is significant. Finally, I mentioned our legislative efforts. We've been aggressively pursuing those. We continue to work with our Government Affairs Director, Brian Pennington, and our consultants throughout the year on getting the wording in the 2026 WRDA amendment. We requested the language that you see here in 3 areas that we know need reevaluation. And if we're successful in this amendment, this allows us to move more expeditiously, which could drive down costs and significantly fast-track things such as the Freemason alignment, which the city manager sent a letter stating that we want to look at different alternatives. There's just too many challenges to get through the feasibility alignment there, and we know we need to do that. We can get language in the WRDA 2026, which would help us expedite that design of that phase in a different light. And finally, I'll end with community engagement. We have a planned series of meetings scheduled later in the summer, probably in the August timeframe, to provide general project updates to the community on designs being worked now and also comply with the environmental compliance associated with this project. These meetings will be held in various parts of the city. And there will also be one virtual event that will be recorded and posted online for residents who are unable to attend in person. And we will continue our biweekly newsletter, updating the project website, which is resilientnorfolk.com. And as usual, we will be out there attending task force meetings and civic meetings as needed and requested. So that concludes our presentation.
Questions? Yes, Mr. Page.
Yes, sir. Between the two of you, thank you for such a detailed presentation. The $500,000 that was just awarded to do research over on the south side, how does this now, with the price increase, how does that impact us? Is this research still going to take place?
Yes, sir, it will. So through the congressional designated spending from Congressman Scott's office, we now have $500,000 in federal money to start that. That total cost for that study is $3 million, so we will need another $1 million from the federal government. And we have identified CIP funding of $1.5 million. So that will continue at that rate. If we are successful in the word of 2026, we could fast track that because we could use construction money instead of investigation money.
All right, thank you. And my second question would be, with now the change in price, is there any opportunity for a different technology or the possibility of a technology that didn't exist when we started this, potentially being researched right now that might ultimately work out better for us?
Yes, sir. So we are constantly looking for alternative technologies or things that we can do. We leverage a lot of work that's already being done in Europe and other places to try and be as innovative as possible to bring flood protection to the city.
Yes, Mr. Clanton.
Yeah, appreciate it. Councilman Page actually asked one of the questions that I had. I just wanted to just double back on how much of the increase that we've seen here is controlled.
That's a great question. Really, right now, I think a lot of it will be controllable, and a lot of it, if you went back, a lot of it is based off of assumptions about what the future holds. So I don't have a specific figure for you, but a good portion of it is controllable.
So the $2.6 billion that we were first presented, was that a lot of hard cost? And then we looked at this new assumption, I guess, process you've gone through in the last 2 years, I guess that's the timing now. And that's what's ballooned into $6 billion?
So it's been a combination of a few different things. One, the original plan, somewhat conceptual, and so we've realized that things are cost more than we had originally estimated. That's typical in as you go through a design process. You understand there are things that potentially didn't account for initially. And then some of it is we're just seeing construction in general across the nation, not just in the Hampton Roads, but really across the nation. Those prices keep increasing. So we've used those different models and essentially projected those out.
Yes, Mr. Doyle? You're yielding? Okay, Mr. Jeremy McGee.
It seems that we're still a ways away from having an alignment and a shovel-ready design for the Freemason portion of the project. I'm wondering, would there be any wisdom in looking beyond Freemason? There's an area there that has less historic homes, it has vacant land, the tide runs through there, it also has our hospital that serves the whole city. So is there any wisdom in looking at that area on a more aggressive pace while we sort out the challenges in Freemason? And if so, what does that process look like?
So, great questions, Councilman McGee. The Chief Resilience Officer and his staff, we looked at this. We actually did a synthesis report looking at all those different options. The manager and I have met with the CHKD, OU, EMS. They have a lot of large capital projects that we're aware of. They also want to see that protection fast-tracked over there. The manager has directed me and Kyle to determine how we can do that. We have voiced that to our partners at the Corps on how we can ensure that we can build something there and then tie in the difference of, and depending on how long that takes, either successful in WRDA 2026 to fast track it, or whether we have to wait another 2 years to award in 2028. But that is key on our considerations to try to ensure that segment, if we need to build that first and then come back, since we continue to have challenges with the alignment through Freemason.
Do we have to wait for WRDA to actually look at that segment?
Do you want to talk to the contract with Jacobs and how we asked them to
Actually, Brandon, if you feel more comfortable talking about the actual contract itself, but
That's one of my questions. Then the other question is, what is the timeline for finishing up the design of the 30% of the alignment of Freemason that we do not desire? And when are we gonna have the 30% design of the alignment we do desire over the water? So those are my two questions, which is alignment, funding, and chunking up the section that Jeremy mentioned.
I'm Brandon Harris, Chief of the Engineering Division at the Army Corps of Engineers Norfolk District. And the first part I'd like to speak to is the areas of the alignment and the timing as far as what was authorized, and then we'll have to circle back to the in-water question. So right now we have a contract with Jacobs, who is our architect engineer partner. They're doing the design for us in parallel with our in-house team. And they're looking at the full 1C alignment right now, which is from the rail yard north of Midtown Tunnel down through Freemason to the existing downtown flood wall. And as we investigate those areas with Jacobs, we're looking for opportunities where we can accelerate and where alignment deviations, smaller deviations, not the in-water alignment, but the smaller deviations, we can make those work under our current authorization, do what makes sense so that we're not spending resources on something that we know we're not going to build. And so with that, by the end of this calendar year, we have an interim submittal coming from Jacobs. And that interim allows us to have a better cost estimate for that section of the alignment that will then be matured to 35% design by spring of 2027. And with that, we're working very closely with the city staff and the Office of Resilience on what makes sense. If the authorized alignment doesn't make sense, we need to change it. And how do we make those changes and make it work for the public in the best interest? And we're also identifying areas where, as you all know, Phase 1A at one point was one large section that's now subdivided into smaller sections, such as Phase 1A Water Street. Well, the same type of subdivision will happen in Phase 1C once we get past that 35% design milestone. So we'll have areas that make a lot of sense, such as what Mr. McGee mentioned about having an area where we have a lot of fidelity and public support and it makes sense and works. Let's break those off now, push those forward more quickly to construction. The in-water alignment has no schedule to my knowledge right now, as we need, and I may have to phone a friend on that, sir, about authorization to look at that.
So the history is this, that we were told that by law, you were required to do the alignment to go to 30%, even though we didn't desire the alignment. When we got to 30% and said, no, thank you, then you could begin the alignment that we did desire in terms of study?
So we are currently undergoing what's called a validation study. Because the cost of the project has exceeded what Congress has authorized us to do, we literally have no permission to go beyond that. So the validation study looks at advancing the design to 35%, which would 30-ish%, which would allow us to improve our confidence in that alignment. Beyond that, we do not have the authority to look beyond the authorized project. So I think it was talked about earlier about doing a study, conducting a study. I think that was related to the WRDA legislated actions that were being pursued to be able to do that study using the construction funding. So currently, we do not have a study that's able to evaluate the over-the-water alignment or look at alternatives to the authorized alignment.
And so remind us, when would we have the authorization to do that?
It would need to be, we would have to we would need to have funding and we would need to have permission to
And would that come with the WRDA legislation or thereafter? Yes. So a lot is hinging on the 26 WRDA reauthorization and on this whole project, frankly, right? Right, okay. Okay, thank you.
Could you tell us your name and your position?
I apologize. Yes, my name is Michelle Hamer. I'm Chief of the Planning and Policy Branch of the Norfolk District.
Last name again?
Hamer, H-A-M-O-R.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Smigiel?
I can save the city money, we can take the Pretty Lake floodgate out of this if Virginia Beach is gonna move forward with it, and punt it to Virginia Beach.
There's two.
I know it's gonna be
advantages.
longer, yeah.
Mayor, if you don't mind, there's two real advantages to the Virginia Beach approach, including that and potentially benefit to Broad Creek. You wanna touch on that briefly?
Yes, so the Virginia Beach, the study that we did from 2016 to 2019, the beach is now doing. And they're doing it over a longer period of time because they know they need to get a design that's better than 10%. We have met with their staff, they're liaising through the Corps as well. They're contemplating putting their flood protection, as you said, at the phase 2 at the mouth of Little Creek Inlet, which would no longer require the Pretty Lake floodgate, as well as putting the Broad Creek phase 4 flood protection further toward the Elizabeth River, if you will, negating the need for any of that flood protection. So they are progressing. We are keeping a keen eye on that, and I see that as a potential cost savings as well. But they have not progressed to an area or tentatively selected plan yet for us to be able to hang our hat on that.
Do we have a timeline of when we may be able to make a call of whether or not we even need to continue including this? I mean, will any of us be around this table by the time the floodgated Pretty Lake's even gonna happen? So realistically, I mean, is it something that could be made sooner than later so that we can budget this out better for the future of Norfolk?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Kyle, the tentatively selected plan for the beach is gonna be done when? This fall.
They would go to WRDA 28.
They would be in WRDA 2028, so I think within the next 2.5 years, we could probably have that answer and say, let's do this by watershed and not by locality.
Could I ask a follow-up on that? So as we think about Pretty Lake and potential changes that might happen in there, are we going to have to design that to 30% like we're having to do the alignment that's unfavorable in Freemason? I think the taxpayers are quite frustrated by that and do not understand why we have to spend the time and money to design something that we just know is absolutely not workable. Will that be an obstacle we have to face at every turning point as we move forward? Can you speak to that?
No, as a matter of fact, right now, we're kind of on purpose, a little bit waiting to see exactly what the tentative selected plan is in Virginia Beach, so we don't have to go down a path that won't ultimately get executed.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Solve questions? Thank you, sir.
Mayor, I'll ask that Doug Beaver stay at the lectern for a brief overview of some utility work on Norview near the airport.
I just have one slide, a depiction of the Bromley water and sewer project, which the Department of Utilities is getting ready to kick off. I want to start with why are we doing this project along Norview and right outside of the airport. This area ranks in the top 10 neighborhoods for aging utility infrastructure based on a citywide condition assessment. Some key factors for this area in particular necessitating the project include its proximity to Lake Whitehurst, which is one of our freshwater reservoirs, and the area mostly being served by 1950s aged water mains and sewer, which are requiring frequent calls for service. So we really need to get in there and fix this area. The first phase of the work, which is what you see here, will last approximately 6 months and involves closing a stretch of Norview you see here depicted in orange. So these are the lanes that as you exit the airport and you make your way toward Military Highway and then ultimately the interstate that will be closed for 6 months. So what we're doing as a result, that stretch is roughly a half a mile. The stretch in green is a little over a mile,
you would exit, we're going to add a second turn lane onto Azalea Garden from the airport. We are also going to change the signalization there to allow greater timing of allowing cars to flow out. And we're adding specialized markings as well. I want to reiterate there will be no impact to inbound traffic. So when you're trying to catch that flight and you're coming into the airport, this first phase will not impact that. Access to residences and businesses will be maintained throughout. We've already been in touch as early as today with one of the businesses that's very close to the Military Highway Norview intersection to communicate to them what our plan is and to allow them a point of contact if they have further on questions. Phase 2 will look at the other side, so the inbound lanes, but the traffic management plan for that portion, which won't occur until probably after October of '26, hasn't been fully developed. We are looking hard at how we can maintain greater access coming in, because we know that's a key component for the airport. So subject to your questions, that's what I have about the Bromley Sewer and Water Project.
Questions for Mr. Beaver? Yes, Ms. Doyle, and then Mr. Page.
It's my understanding this has been very clearly communicated with airport leadership. Is my understanding?
Yes, so the airport leadership approached the manager and myself roughly a month ago. We asked our traffic consultant to take a hard look at this. Is there any way we can keep one outbound lane open? Due to safety concerns, they said we could not do that. We communicated that back staff to staff, and then I attended the last airport authority meeting last week where it was presented to the board that this was the case and what we were able to do to mitigate that concern. So they're fully aware.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Page?
Yes. Are there any other ways that we could do this? Like, why have we decided to do it in a way where it just be one lane that's open going both ways?
Yes, sir. Our consultant took a hard look at that. Given the fact that we've got to do water and wastewater while the road is torn up, we need to close both lanes. And there wasn't an opportunity to do work on one side of the street and then move lanes from across the median onto the other side. So they looked at that, but due to safety concerns, they said we could not do this.
So it was not another route that maybe would have cost a little bit more money for us? Is this the least expensive route to take?
It's the least expensive route because once we tear that stretch of road up to go in and do the construction, the quicker we can get in there and get out, the less impact and less cost will be over time. If we had to mobilize and demobilize, that would increase cost to the project.
Okay, all right, because I know in some instances they're able to come right down the median and do the same thing in areas where you have outdated plumbing down under the roads. And I know that that's not always the most cost effective, but what it does, it alleviates the burden on traffic. And I wouldn't want us to spend extra money that we don't have to spend, but I just want us to consider that our airport is growing at the rate that it is, and this is the busy season. And not just that, the impact that it's going to have on citizens that live in that area for 6 months during the peak season, and really how bad this could potentially be in rush hour traffic and key times with the airport. So I would just ask that we spend a little bit of time before we lock in, make sure we're doing not just what costs the least, but what's the best for all involved, particularly our citizens that live in that area.
So we'll take a look at that and we'll also roll that into the traffic management plans for when the impacted lanes are inbound, because we know those are the most critical while you're trying to get to a flight, you don't want to be delayed.
Spiegel?
Sorry if I'm a little bit salty today with my comments. Councilman Page and I have discussed this and I shared my concerns already. Can anybody in this room name one recent construction project that has finished within the timeline that has been set on city roads? Because let's talk about
Raby Street project is
the
actually
the bike lanes that was supposed to be done 2 years ago.
from the start of the
but-
project to May, it's going to be in.
It's still not done, by the way.
We're not in May.
And I use West Little Creek Road as an example. Martin, you're aware of that project, going the Hampton Boulevard. I don't buy that this is gonna be done in 6 months. My concern is as we do go into November and December, which are heavy travel times, and also with the Botanical Gardens, the Garden of Lights and the traffic that goes in there. I'm also concerned about the way that we do traffic mitigation when we do have construction projects. We tend to be very reactive after council people point out that cars are stuck at lights trying to make turns for a long time. I understand leaving the airport, but you have a big issue that's gonna happen over at Military Highway in Norview Avenue. Particularly if people cannot get into the shopping center anymore coming from Azalea Garden Road area, and they have to go all the way around in order to do that. You're now putting all of that traffic into the Bromley Shopping Center off of Military Highway. There is an access point next to the Wendy's that we could cut into the median and put some kind of turn lane in there to allow more cars to come in to that shopping center. But unfortunately, we have a bad history of this, and I think right now, particularly on that side of the city, and I know this because of all the recent civic leagues I went to, and a lot of my folks in Ward 5 use that access to get to the interstate, that there's construction fatigue in the city of Norfolk, and particularly with all the construction that's happening with the interstate. And I just don't know why we're adding another project. I understand this is needed, but can we finish some other projects in Norfolk first before we add more construction projects that do not follow timelines? It's the same thing I said, why we could have had the bike lanes done 2 years ago, but we waited right when Ward's Corner was all under construction and the interstates were, Granby Street and Little Creek Road were down to 1 lane to then cause all of that traffic during the bike lane construction at Granby. I don't know, it's always are we thinking through all of this and the impact on the quality of life that this has for the people that end up having to change their routes and what they have to do and adding extra time onto their schedule if they have families. I just hope that we are not reactive after this when we realize that cars are going to be lined up on Military Highway to make a left-hand turn onto Norview Avenue to get heading north to get on the interstate because you're rerouting all that traffic. Have we done traffic studies? Have we looked at the impact of all of this before and this is supposed to happen this month. So I just found out about it when Civic League members were asking me, they're still concerned about the other construction that's happening and how long that's taken in that area. And there's been no public notice of this at all that I've seen anywhere on our website until I started asking about this. So once again, sorry, I'm being, it's just another construction project that everybody has to deal with. And I don't think that it's gonna end up the way that, I hate to be negative, I would rather us be proactive now, slow this down just a little bit, think this through, and figure out the next steps than just say, oh, this is what we're gonna do. So.
Okay, Mr. Clanton.
Okay, I know the airport's working on their new, what's the timing of that in this project?
So that was discussed at the airport authority, I believe, as well. So that's the exit. You could also, instead of coming out and going out to Norview, you can go around the airport. They've already started removing trees. They're going to change the alignment of that road so it's a less aggressive turn. So that will be ongoing as part of their project. The city has no design work in that area, but their project manager and our project manager will be talking to one another to ensure that we're aware of what's going on.
So pretty much those projects will be going on at the same time?
I believe there will be some overlap, but let me take a question and get back to you on that and ensure I got the right information.
It's right behind your head, if you see where it says Crossfire Logistics.
Yeah, I know what that is.
That's where the road's gonna straighten and cut off that old runway.
That would be done to be able to help alleviate, but it's a big project. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Beaver. Ms. Roberts, what do you have, sir?
Thank you. Mr. Tahan has the city planning update. I'd like to ask Bobby to come up to the lectern.
Mr. Manager, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the City Council. I have 3 items to brief you on. 2 of these items are scheduled for today and one being scheduled at your April 28th meeting. The first item is Black Eyed Peas at 241 Granby Street. The existing conditions, well, they're actually currently open, operating as a restaurant without alcohol, and this request is to allow the restaurant to provide live entertainment and to sell alcohol for on-premise consumption. Here are the floor plans for the proposed, or for the existing restaurant that's there now. They are proposing to have a DJ, and to meet ordinance requirements, they are required to show where they're planning on having a dance floor for that, and that area is on the first floor. The second floor also has an area of seating and a host area that could also be switched over for potential location of entertainment. This location also has a mezzanine, which has an additional seating area, a limited seating area with access. The previous user was Brick Anchor Brew House, and they had entertainment as well that was approved. Black Eyed Peas is looking to operate from 8 a.m. to 12 midnight, 7 days a week with a special allowance for 1 a.m. on New Year's Eve. They have a little bit more limited seating capacity than Brick Anchor Brew House, and their entertainment is similar, just with the addition of disc jockey. The Planning Commission recommends by a 5-0 vote approval of the request. It is located downtown where these uses are encouraged. It replaces a similar use, and with this being a new user in the city, there will be a 2-year expiration that is proposed on it.
Yes, Ms. Doyle.
Bobby, when I met the restaurant owner several weeks ago, I don't recall her saying that they were gonna have a DJ. In fact, I think I asked her explicitly and they weren't. And so here they're doing a DJ. This is also a building that has residential use above it. So I'm a bit concerned about this DJ application as part of this, because that was not my original understanding.
Understood. The previous user had live band and karaoke, but they did not have DJ, as you noted.
Right.
Mr. Tom, before I recognize Ms. Johnson, is the DJ to accompany the karaoke, comedian, poetry, or is there a dance floor associated with this?
By ordinance, in order to not have operators gain the regulations, the ordinance requires you to have a dance floor, even though you may not be utilizing it. Our understanding is that the applicant is proposing to just only have the DJ for background music, not to be utilizing this space as a club. So,
Is there any way to codify that? Is there a way, the applicant, is there a way to do exactly what the applicant wants to do?
Do all restaurants that have background music have a permitted DJ CUP?
They do not. The provision of background music does not fall within the definition of entertainment, and so the DJ, right now as defined in the zoning ordinance, having a DJ and having background music are mutually exclusive. They're two completely different things. And if they wanted to just have background music, they would not need a permit for a DJ, and they could have it as part of their restaurant approval.
So, let me try to say, so the DJ or a person who's playing background music, not for dancing, but it's a person providing background music, that person is titled a DJ or something else?
I probably should have clarified that. I believe that the understanding of the definition of a DJ when proposed as a form of entertainment in these approvals is a person who is experienced with putting on different music and records as an entertainer for the purpose of entertaining the public, so that the people who are coming are doing more than just enjoying their food and maybe having the benefit of the background music. They are also consuming the entertainment and the art of the DJ, as it were. And so if it's just background music, if it's somebody with a playlist choosing music to be played as background music, then it would not qualify as a DJ. But having a person who is essentially paid to entertain your patrons and to provide them that additional activity besides food food service. That is what a DJ is under the entertainment approval.
I thought we had this issue in the Neon District. Didn't we have a restaurant that was found having a DJ and they switched to playing music on pre-recorded music on device, but it was still a DJ?
Right, that did
They
happen.
were- And I know at my high school dances, most of the DJs now come in with pre-selected list. It's on a computer and they just hit a button and it goes through the songs. The kids can come up and make requests, but it's already pre-selected on that, so I don't.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah,
I just wanna make sure
yeah.
that it's not, thank you for your definition, it clarifies. And Bobby, if the DJ, outside of this list of activity, it's only for the purpose of providing background instead of a activity. Because the way that Ms. Melita just described it, if it's for the purpose of an activity, DJ providing music for not only entertainment, but for dancing and activity, it's going outside of the scope that the restaurateur said that they wanted to do. They wanted background music. So just want to make sure that it doesn't become something other than what it's being described as.
Understood, yeah. Because of the fine line that exists between that and the other operations that we've seen happen in the city, it's either been DJ or no DJ, not slicing it in that fashion. I'll just, if that's okay, Mr. Mayor, I'll discuss with the applicant if they're here today to ensure that we have the same understanding.
Get some clarity, because we don't, want to make sure that the applicant is successful. But at the same time, we manage expectations, okay?
That she knows what she was applying for. Exactly. Thank you.
Mr. Clinton, and then Mr. Page.
I would like some clarity. I'm still fairly new coming in. So when we are establishing, I know we said it's a new business coming in, they have 2 years on their conditional use permit. That's pretty much, I guess, in some regards, we're just kind of watching, making sure that you're using it. And if they don't use it, then we can take it away. Is that,
Yes, sir, yeah.
saying that right?
If you abuse it, yeah.
Yeah.
You can lose it.
I just wanna, particularly, we have a business in this, for me, looking at, that's relocated from Virginia Beach that's here. I have no problem with the additional clarity. But if we're giving out conditional use permits, it should be that. We should have good faith that we've clearly outlined what the expectations are and that we're doing the oversight and watching that. And if not, we take it back. But I don't know, sometimes I get the feeling of kind of before we've given the opportunity, I guess some individuals get put into the same bucket. And I think that we should be really looking at that as a case-by-case basis.
Understood, and very supportive of this application. We just want to ensure that all parties know exactly of the activity that's going to happen in and around that's associated with the CUP, so that it's clear. What, if you're going to have a dance floor, tell us. And if you're going to have dancing, tell us. And if you're going to have a DJ that's going to be providing more than background music, and it's within an activity where you play your favorite song and all to the dance floor, then just tell us. And so we know exactly whether or not we want to move forward with it or not. Okay, Mr. Page.
I'm texting back and forth. She said what she needs it for is once weekly on Saturdays from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. I've met with her and she never mentioned the DJ. Now what she's saying, so no DJ band only is fine if this keeps on the consent agenda to go forward tonight.
Yeah, it's we just want clarity. I mean, I think that a new business relocating to the city, very supportive, encouraging, want the business to be very successful. At the same time, we want to do exactly with the CUP. The CUP is not automatic. And so we want to make sure that we all are fully informed and aware of the activity, and that the applicant is aware of the consequences and the responsibilities of having a CUP. It's a CUP. It's a conditional use permit. That's all. So I think we're all on the same page. Probably just clarity. And if she's going to have the activities that she's mentioning, I think it's fine.
I won't prolong this, but my mind just came in here when we're talking about this whole DJ thing. Do we have anything in the ordinance, like there's like these jukebox things now that you can put in a place and people can control from their phones the music?
Mr. Smeagol was
That's
mentioning,
what
they got your playlist.
So that's
Bluetooth.
your own DJ?
Yeah, Bluetooth. Just bring the speakers and your telephone and.
I don't even now, I'm just saying it was just something that came to mind that you might want to clarify.
Those would normally be permitted as background music, that's permitted by the ordinance. Typically.
So you can DJ. All right, so are we ready to move forward? Ms. Doyle, Mr. McGee, I know that you had concerns and are you ready to move forward?
Yeah, let's just have Bobby speak with that owner and see what the clarity provides. Thanks, Bobby.
So she's still on the consent agenda for tonight.
Right then, unless it's
Unless
moved.
something different she talks about.
The next item, I believe, is requested a continuance from your agenda tonight. This is Franklin Patty's for a conditional use permit at 9565 Shore Drive in the existing commercial shopping center that's been renovated, and they're looking to do a restaurant with extended hours and to sell alcoholic beverages for on and off premise consumption. This is the location of the new space. They have an existing location in another locality, and they're planning to open the second location here. The majority of their seating and dining is outdoors, with only 10 seats indoors and with 30 seats outdoors as shown here in those 2 parking spaces that they showed previously. The applicant is proposing to operate from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and 11 a.m. to midnight Friday and Saturday with late hours on special event days as listed here. Again, they have a very limited capacity of only 10 seats indoors with 38 seats outdoors and a 54 total capacity. The Planning Commission, by a 4-0 vote with 1 abstention, recommended approval. There is limited seating and it is located within the shopping center. There was a speaker that spoke in opposition that voiced concerns of the potential off-premise sales and the outdoor dining. These are the off-premise sales here is not a convenience store off-premise. This is one that's sold contemporaneously with a meal that was allowed over the past few years. So the cost of the meal has to be more than the cost of the off-premise. Due to the concerns of the potential noise with the outdoor dining, the Planning Commission did recommend a condition that limits the outdoor area to no amplified music to mitigate those concerns. Because of that condition that was added, the applicant is, I believe, requesting continuance to the application right now so that they can try to work through this operation and understand how this might impact them. The East Ocean View Civic League did provide a letter voting not to oppose the application.
I haven't heard anybody against this. Where did that come from?
We received a letter of opposition as well as one from a neighbor that is behind the shopping center on.
That's so far away from there. I don't know.
You're being salty.
I am. It's a salty day today. This is such an improvement of what's happening over there. Mara, you know about this because you're jealous. But their Chelsea Bakehouse is going to be right across from them. Yeah, and the golf, what is it called? The golf, yeah. And Lolly's is going there. I don't see where there's a brewery directly behind this that has outdoor music that plays almost at the same time that they're requesting. So I don't see why we're holding this up.
The applicant did note, or the applicant's representative did note to staff that they were planning to continue to try to talk through this additional condition.
Your thoughts?
I have no concerns at all.
Can we have it move forward and take the condition off of this? I mean, is it, who recommended, the planning commission?
Planning Commission, that due to the comments made at the public hearing,
The comments by one person?
there was one speaker.
The Civic League, both you and I just spoke at the Civic League, we didn't hear any complaints about this at all. I know, I don't understand.
I do not have any concerns.
I'd rather them get moving forward and get their construction started, so.
It is advertised on your agenda. I believe that
I'm not seeing what
was added by the Planning Commission.
And they only requested, 3 events to go to one, and I think most places over there, one of them St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
I don't see what number it is on the paper, but I don't know what was advertised on Friday. Robin Thomas called.
Yes.
Paul.
No, Robin Thomas asked that too.
She called last week. Is that the one? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see it in here, no.
Well, Jeremy, if you're not to move forward without the condition, just tell Robin, I don't see, if they become a problem, we could always address that later, but
I do not have any concerns moving forward, but can we do that if it's not advertised?
No, I'm not saying tonight, I mean, obviously but we can pull the condition out and just put it on the next agenda.
And that gives us an opportunity to at least
Yeah.
hear what the one person that spoke at planning commission had to say.
Okay, Mr. Hahn, continue.
One more item, this is a resolution in regards to CL 250. This resolution is to declare an extended special event area in conjunction with CL 250. As noted, if the council members, last year, amendments were made to the special event permitting requirements in order to allow for activation of additional spaces downtown. It allowed for additional outdoor events as well as when there's a resolution passed by council bounding an area that's considered an extended special event, that the properties located in that area are allowed to have additional events, which could either, if they do not have a conditional use permit, they can request the event as normal, or if they have a conditional use permit, they can go outside the bounds of that permit through a permit that's issued by the Department of Planning with review of all the necessary departments associated with it. This area, the area covered by the resolution is bounded by St. Paul's to the east, Brambleton Avenue to the north, the Elizabeth River to the south, and also includes the Chelsea Business District. We've had discussions with both Freemason, the Chelsea Business District, as well as DNC, who also led the charge in trying to have this resolution passed in order for them to open up options as they try to provide additional opportunities for businesses during this large event that will happen in the city. Here's a map of the boundaries as I described. Again, most of the areas are located next to areas where the chips in CL 250 will be moored and to be able to be viewed, and will be part of the area that is will have a significant amount of city resources that will be focused on that area in order to support the event. Questions?
Any questions for Mr. Tahan? All right, any questions, Mr. Roberts?
We do have a number of items that require consideration of closed session motion.
Mr. Gould?
With the members of the council assemble informally in closed meeting on April 14, 2026 at 5:01 p.m. in the 10th floor conference room of the City Hall building in the city of Norfolk. The purposes which are set out in clause 29, 29, and 29 of subsection A of section 2.2-3711 of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act as amended. Clause 29, discussion of leasing property at a Norfolk Public School Board discussion. An open meeting with adversely affected negotiating strategy of the public body, discussion of the contract. Clause 29, for property downtown Ward 2 where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating strategy of the public body. And clause 29, discussion of the contract and scope downtown Ward 2 where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the negotiating strategy of the public body. Mrs. Doyle.
Aye.
Mr. Clanton. Aye. Mrs. Johnson. Aye. Mr. McGee. Aye. Mr. Page.
Aye.
Mr. Sneagle. Aye. Mr. Thomas. Aye. Dr. Alexander.
Aye.
We're in closed, sir.
Okay.